That's right, friends. It's time to cinch up the 5-point and jump right into another episode of Corbetting with Chris.
So I think that's the best part is that your audio is not great because you have 50, 100 grand in equipment.
It's the best lit interview in the history of the Corbetting podcast.
But you don't have a USB-C mic or the simplest social media, plug it in and get it done thing.
I have nothing to record on a cell phone or a laptop, but I have everything else. So we're going to combine those efforts and see what it can do for us here.
Look at how much things have changed in the past, 10, how long have we known each other? 10 years, 12 years now?
I think it's 11.
Yeah.
2013 was your first Hammers with Nitto, right? Probably.
Yeah, 2013. Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah, first Hammers with Nitto.
I met you there with Eric Miller, whatever your first Hammers was when I met you for the first time.
Yeah, because you were...
I'm sorry, your first Hammers with Nitto, not your first Hammers.
Yeah. You were... Tim Colte was my predecessor before I came on board. And I know Tim had worked with you on a couple of projects going in to Hammers. Yep. So, yeah, that was a pretty good...
for 2 years. I think it was 2 years before you.
Yeah.
2011 Hammers was probably the first time I worked for Nitto. Maybe, yeah, 2011. So that makes sense.
Yeah. What did you think of Nitto when it hit the lake bed? What was your first impressions? Because everybody had their ideals of who and what Nitto was. I mean, we had been around for a few at that point, but what was your first impression?
My first impression on the lake bed was a lot different than my first impression of Nitto. Because Nitto, when I was in high school, I graduated in 2004. So Nitto in high school was like dune grappler, mud grappler, or I'm not even sure if mud grappler was then, but tires like that. It's not tires we would have bought for our Jeeps to go wheeling. But then exposure to Nitto at Hammers was a lot of like trail grappler, because that was new at the time then, and that was like a legit tire. So the perception then and when it started are two different things. But
yeah, a lot has changed.
Yes, a lot
has changed. Well, coming out of Hammers, what was your take on Hammers?
Hammers was, it was a lot like all the other years, which is good and bad. There's always good and bad, right? So, for us, every year is more or less the same, which is also good or bad. So, the course was good. Qualifying was a little tough for us. It was kind of a tough course to cover.
It was long.
It was probably one of the tougher courses we've had to cover since we started qualifying. There was no like one-off obstacle except for backdoor. So that was a little bit of a challenge, but we hiked in there and we got some cool stuff. But
yeah, good footage.
Yeah, all in all, it was good. It was a good event. It went well for us. So I have nothing to complain about in that sense.
Anything you'd change?
I want Dave to let media design the qualifying course. That would be cool. and before everyone goes crazy, not for carnage. There's like every year qualifying, it's had like a certain angle that was amazing, and then the next year that goes away. And then the next year there's like an amazing, it's how the light hits and how they come down a hill with a certain light. If I could combine all those courses into one course for no carnage, but just like what that creates, that would be an amazing course. And it would be good for racing too, because they've already done those things and it seemed to work well. So that's what
I agree. I think some of those twilight shots and some of that stuff where, you get the silt rolling off the back and you kind of get this epic shot. I think most racers don't realize, and maybe some do, that a lot of those shots that you pull out of there are done at qualifying. They're not actually during the race.
Qualifying gives us our highlight clips every time.
Yeah.
Like if you get a lot of highlight clips on race day, you're pretty lucky, because race mode on race day is a lot different than race mode during qualifying. And just because qualifying is the main course just condensed, you just get guys in corners. They'll do stuff in corners in qualifying that they would never do in a corner during race day. So if, again, going back to that idea, like coming down a certain ridge at a certain time of day would never happen at race day. Where in
Yeah.
Power Hour, it's like, because you're never going to have Jason Shearer, Eric, or any of those guys at like 5
No,
p.m. Right?
they're not hanging it out like that. 100%.
And they're
Yeah,
probably
100%.
finished. Like they probably crossed the finish line already by that point at golden hour. So like qualifying is such a key moment for us to capture what we capture. So when it's like missing that angle, that makes it a little more difficult, especially if it's missing a spot where it's like something happens, like a huge sand turn with like a big roost or coming down a
Yeah.
huge rock face. I remember one year, I can't remember exactly where it was, but they came down through the arch off a huge rock drop off.
Yeah,
That
the
was
big
amazing.
waterfall drop.
Yeah, the waterfall drop. So, and we only did that once. That was so cool. So,
Yeah, that was a good year. That was a good year. And and again, I think you and I always fight we fight for that time from the racer on the lake bed, right? I mean, you got, in this day and age of social media and videos and content, content's king. Contrary to some of that discussion we had the other day, content is king.
yeah,
And
it's a tough balance. Like,
yeah, it is, but it isn't. I mean, again, I was a little disappointed to hear in some that believe that content doesn't matter, that it's just
Right.
about winning the race, because the race is long. You're right. A race is a race. You want to win it, but it is a balance. It's a balance to make that time for, production companies like yourself, that are contracted by, us and others that really, we're all looking for that epic shot. We're all looking for that, highlight reel. We're all looking for that stuff that sometimes doesn't come during race day. It just
Right.
comes because you got to take an hour out of your day and hit the lake bed and get her done. But yeah, it's always a challenge, because some don't have to do it, right?
Sure.
You got kind of a divide in motorsports, and all motorsports. You've got guys that have the cubic dollars, so to speak, and guys that don't. And the guys that don't, we really got to find a way to get to the guys that do.
Sure.
So, and there's been, you and I, we both watched in our tenure, we've watched those that didn't have the cubic dollars transition into having the cubic dollars. And that takes, not only good racing, but it does take the time, for all
takes a
the
lot of
additional.
For sure. Because, like, it's no small commitment to do, like, I totally recognize when we ask someone to come out for a shoot, it's like, try to keep it pretty short, but to do things right, like, you can't go out for 20 minutes and just, sometimes it takes 20 minutes to get a shot. So,
Yeah.
an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, I mean, a whole day would be great, but there's always a balance. Like, I totally understand that, the main problem, or I guess the main struggle, would be that racers have one huge priority and I have another huge priority, and somewhere those mesh together for sure. Because
We had this joke. You're the go-between, right?
Yeah.
The manufacturer or the sponsor, vendor, whatever sponsor, the sponsor is the one dictating your time, right? The sponsor says, "Hey, Will, I need you to capture this guy because we
Right.
want to use him in this promotional advertisement, whatever it is," right? And so you get really put in, I think, in a bad position where manufacturers lean on you to capture that, and racers don't always listen to the go-between. They'll listen to the guy writing the check, but not the go-between. And I've watched that happen a couple of times, even in our relationship, and always a struggle. Yeah, for sure, always a struggle.
For sure. I mean, I've been doing this so long that I know a lot of the guys, so I can kind of be like, like, I know, like, this isn't super awesome right now, but, like, kind of have to do it, So I like to think that we respect people's time as good as we can, and it bums me out when people won't do the same and go the distance for. It's not for, like, I'm not doing it for my YouTube channel. I'm doing it because someone that is supporting someone or paying someone or plans to do so, whatever that may be, that's actually not even any of my business. They want me to come and take care of what they need. So, which is, that's fine. That's why I'm there.
The proof is in the pudding when it comes to content in my mind. I mean, yeah, the landscape's changed a bunch on what that content is, how you reach that content, but the fundamentals are still the same. And that the best known racers, even content producers, have taken the time. Like they've made the effort. I could go back to a couple of guys even racing that I know that always said, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, let's do it. You pitch an idea. You're like, hey, what do you think about doing this, jumping off this, crashing this? Yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it. You know, and that has led some of those individuals that we know, it's led to bigger and better things.
Totally.
So
it all comes down to what their goal is, right? Some guys want to follow that path, and that goes a certain way, and then others want to go another path that goes another way. Who's to say what's better? I'm a little biased. I think the content thing, it probably does a lot of heavy lifting, but I don't know. We've had generally good luck with it, but like you said, there's some guys that
you and I've had some good wins over the years. What has been your favorite video that, I mean, even not necessarily even anything you've done with us, but what's your favorite video that you produced and put out? Like, you got to have just one that stands out. I mean, I know your Origins video I thought was really good. But what's your favorite video?
Favorite video I've ever done for my company?
Drone taking out bees?
It's probably the one that was the most seen of anything I've ever done, which is highly unfortunate.
And the most poached. The most poached.
Yeah,
that's a whole nother
which
subject. We'll get on the poaching subject.
Yeah, the bee thing, that was a whole thing. My favorite video, man, I don't know.
Didn't you get some hate mail on that one too?
A lot of hate. A lot of people from Europe. I'm trying to remember now. A lot of people from Europe thought that they were, I think it was like a European honeybee. Or a European hornet.
Ooh.
There's some yellow jacket or bee or something there that is endangered. So when they see that, they think, like, they look at it like us, like shooting a bald eagle or something, Like,
oh, wow.
But here it's like they're just paper wasps, and like I'm not just like indiscriminately killing wasps. So for people that don't know the story, there was a paper wasp nest that was built on the eve of a rental house that we had a few years ago, and I had a Mavic 2 Pro, and I used the Mavic to chop up the paper wasp nest. I took video of it, honestly, just to send my friends as like a funny thing, because everyone knew that side of my house, and I put a funny spin on it. And then I posted it to my personal Facebook, and I don't know how many views it has, a few million now or something, and like 90,000 shares. But I mean, it went everywhere, and people like stole it and put it on TikTok and YouTube.
It was pretty crazy. It did get poached. I mean, I remember that period. Like, here's your video again. Some other guys shared it. It went crazy.
And now, however many 100 million people have seen the corner of my house. So it's just a weird thing. That's how all those.
Is that still the same house you're in now, or was that the old house?
No, that was the rental house a few years ago.
The rental
house. We own it now. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that's
nice.
All news now. Yeah, a lot of people have seen that rental house.
So what's your favorite vid? That you've put together that you're, if you could put the Will Gentile Emmy, nomination, what's your number one video?
I'd really have to think about that. I came ill prepared to answer a question like that. I can name a few that I'm like proud of. I would say a couple years ago, one of the recap videos we did for Nitto for hammers was really cool. Like, it was really short and punchy. I think it was 2021 or 2. That was a good recap video. 2018, we did a really good hammers video for y'all. But like the Origins videos for me, like, I'm pretty proud of those, because a lot of people, at least that spoke to me, told me they like really appreciated it, and like it helped them explain to other people. It's not, the good thing about Origins is it's not just a straight commercial piece, and it's not really trying to like sell something to someone as much as it is explaining the history of something that I've personally experienced, and I get to kind of tell it through my lens in the most accurate, best way I can, talking to everyone in the industry that I know personally through my time at Hammers. So those videos to me are kind of a a culmination of my time there. My first year was 2010, so I wasn't there right at the start, but I've seen a lot of it. I'm there every year. There's not a year I haven't worked there. So, yeah, I would say the Origins videos, there's 3 of them, and those are probably the documentary length type that I'm the most proud of. It's hard to compare to that to like a product video or like a Nissan commercial. You know, they're so different that it's not apples to apples. But as far as just project based, probably those. And then I did one video on my dad about his golf career, and I went out and shot with him with a few of my cameras. And that one, to me, that's more of like a personal video for me. So I like that one a lot too. And again, it's hard to compare like KOH Origins to like my dad's golf video, but those stick out to me.
Awesome. Yeah, I just was looking here just see if I pretty new to the podcast thing to see if I could pull up a screen window or screenshot of it, but I don't know that I'm that proficient in this software
test your
yet.
technical skills on the fly here.
Yeah. So I'll cancel that one out. It might show up. We'll see. But yeah, I was kind of winging it there. So
Yeah, it's all good.
No, that's cool. And your dad was your pro golfer, as I recall, right? Didn't he have a?
He's a PGA professional. He has been his whole life. So he played on the tour. He's in the Connecticut Golf Hall of Fame with the U.S. CGA. Yeah, I mean, he's played golf for, let's see, man, I don't know, in his 20s, and he's in his 70s now. So he's done it all, man. He played on the PGA Tour. So that's a cool thing. And my mother is actually also a golf professional in the LPGA, and she still teaches to this day. So yeah, It's a big golf family.
And you never went that path? You never had any interest, or?
I mean, it's tough when your parents are both unbelievable at golf. There's a lot to live up to there. So when I go out on the course, unfortunately, I get very frustrated. But I can play golf. Like when I was a kid, I'd go and hit 200 balls at the course, and I was into it. Like I had a natural swing because obvious reasons, but I just never got into it. I'm a baseball guy. I like baseball.
Yeah, I know you do. And you're pretty good with some oh yeah, Yankees.
Always on hand.
Yeah. I'm always curious. Like sometimes where people fall into their parents' footsteps or don't fall into their parents' footsteps. Yeah. So what the reasoning is, and whether or not if there's any life changes along the way that hit you and you go, no way, I'm not doing golf. So
it's just me being mad on a golf course. That's the only excuse I have.
Yeah, you angry kid.
My mother's into photography a little bit. Like she does.
Really? I didn't know that.
She has a photography business where she does a lot of 360 VR tours. Like so, when you go to visits on Google Earth or whatever it may be, she does a lot of that these days. Did a little bit more of that in the past, but she knows her way around a camera for sure. So that's probably where I got a little bit of that from. Well, definitely where I got a little bit of that from. And,
in the genes, for sure.
Yeah,
that's cool. Sure. I didn't know that.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So, I mean, I was going to ask you about your famous term I think that you've coined on social media, which is exposure bucks. So some know what we're talking about, but some don't. But anybody that follows your social knows your term exposure bucks.
I can't take credit for that actual term, but I have commandeered it quite a bit.
I think you've commandeered it. I would say that you own it. At least in my circle.
Now made that my thing, so I have to be very careful with where I source everything I use.
Yeah, don't poach anything.
I can no longer poach things.
Yeah, we had that. For those that don't know, we had a conversation this morning. Why we're joking about the poaching of things is that one of the issues in the media world right now is that a company, an agency, individual can take time to really put forth effort and spend money to produce a very quality video. You're right.
Yep.
And I think one of the frustrations that a lot of companies have is that they'll see that content then used to promote something else. AI is that problem, right? AI voice of Joe Rogan, promoting supplements or something. It's been going on in the video world for a good 7, 8 years, I think it's been kind of prolific, where it's been a problem that just keeps creeping up. And the company I work for now has that problem. I mean, we have people that poach videos and the content's running on other tire companies. Like, it's crazy to me. So yeah, what's the solution you think to that? I mean, short of firing up the legal machine, and I feel like the music industry has done a pretty good job with licensing content and looking out after that. But it seems like the video space, it's just considered public domain. It's out there for use. And it doesn't matter if it's per profit or not, right? I could see if we were all playing the charity game, but yeah, it's a very strange mix on the video poaching end of things.
It gets a little foggy, like the whole fair use thing that I don't think anyone particularly understands. I don't even understand all of it that well, but so fair use would dictate something like, I believe commentary is one of the categories. So like if you had like a video talking about something where it's informative and you overlay video footage that you're like explaining, that would be referred to as commentary. And then there's another arm that's like satire. So like you can use music in a video as long as you're like satirizing it, So the problem with the copyright laws, it goes so deep. Like, I don't know the intricacies of it. I would never claim to. But for me, the main problem is social media companies, because Facebook or Instagram or whoever it may be stands to lose by taking care of copyrighted content, because the more that's on the platform, the better it is for them.
They don't want to. That's
right.
my take.
They actively do not want to get rid of it. They will get rid of it, but there's no active effort in advance to get rid of it. So say the B video, for example.
Yeah.
Paper walls, not beats, for all the European people.
I'll tell you my only YouTube story after this we're done. Remind me about Mahindra. That was a fun one. I got angry Indian emails for Mahindra.
You got the internet mad.
I got the country of India. Just so you know, the Mahindra, the Roxor, and then they have a it's a Jeep knockoff. It's a Jeep JL. And they are very passionate, much like we're passionate about Jeep. They're passionate about Mahindra. And you do anything that talks negatively about Mahindra, you might as well just be, it's like somebody talking bad about the Jeep brand. We go, you're crazy. It's an American brand. It's like, Indians feel that same way about Mahindra, just so you know.
It's easy to touch a nerve.
Anyways.
So for the B video, the whole thing is like, if someone posts that video, it's almost already too late by the time the copyright claim goes through, because it's amassed 1, 2, 3, 4 million views. And then by the time it's removed, it's almost like, why even, the ship has already sailed. So I honestly didn't pursue those a lot, because there's really no point. And it's all by design, right? Because if I were to put a copyrighted track on one of my videos, YouTube immediately knows that that's in there, immediately. And it'll flag it electronically. And they have a predetermined discussion with the rights holder. It says you can either play it on YouTube and they receive money for it, or just cancel the video and it can't. They mute it, basically. So
you're talking music, any music track or audio track or anything.
Right. They have the technology to recognize that instantly. And
which they could do for video. They could do for video,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely, they could do that for video. That's the point. So I think they can do that for video, and in some cases they do have that for video. But I think that's applied very sparingly on purpose, because if all of the copyrighted stuff on Instagram was wiped away, then the platform would be like, I don't know, 10% of the size. Because most of Instagram, maybe not most, but a lot of Instagram is repost pages, which basically just exist to, they collect everyone's content, repost it through one platform. Instead of like, I have a cool picture every few days, someone else has a cool picture every few days. This platform or this account just has cool pictures all the time from everyone. So there's a lot of that on Instagram, like a huge amount. So if they were to move those accounts, I mean, that's it.
But I think that, platforms need to figure out a way, or look, there's content that we all do that we agree is shareable, or go ahead and poach it, take it. I don't care. But I in a perfect world, each platform would have that little swipe that just says, don't poach my add me to the AI search to don't poach, right? This content is unique to me because I paid for it. I secured it. I think that's, I think all brands or companies or content producers, would in some ways would benefit from their own brand being protected that way. Just, again, not everything, but yeah, just don't repoach this. And if AI finds it, go ahead and it's got my meta tag in it, go ahead and pull it off. I just want to tick that box. There's got to be a way, I think, because I do see, and TikTok, I mean, you're right. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook Reels, all of it. That's all about resharing everybody others. I mean, how many times have we posted up something on our own social and sweet, it got 10,000 views. And then I see it on somebody else's page and it got 150,000 views. And then I see it on another page for 50,000 views. If I am in the business of making money off social, right? I got poached by 200,000 other people that took my video and used it. I'm not getting credit for that.
Right.
So it'd be nice to see him do something. It'll probably never happen in my lifetime, but
I just think there's too much of a conflict of interest, and they'll probably never do something. That's my thought.
I agree. I agree.
And for me, it's like
they got to sell ads is the bottom line. It's all about selling ads.
Right.
So,
and a video with 1 million views, they don't care who owns it or who posts it or anything. Their hands on it. Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
So I think there's solutions, but they just won't be applied on purpose. So
it's all about revenue. It's all about the eyeballs. It's all about big business. It's and a shareholder, right? You got to share growth. So by all means, they have to have more eyeballs and more insights, or just more views, and just to make the number, right? There's a platform because Procter and Gamble's got to sell Crest ads, and everybody's got to sell an ad against the whatever content it is. So
yeah,
you're probably right.
If anyone wants to look into that is specifically called freebooting. Is the name of that practice. When you lift someone else's content and use it on your own, that is called a freeboot. So, and that leads to exposure bucks. It's a whole avenue.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And again, I've seen some of your content get shared with large automotive aftermarkets and large automotive OEMs. That's got to be a little frustrating. A little bit.
It is. I mean, just seeing your content taken is a bummer, but also it's tough to go if I make a video, let's say we do a project for you guys, for Nitto, and the video on your channel gets 1,000 views, but someone lifted it and got however many 10, 100,000 views. It's hard for me to sell doing those videos again when the reach is nothing, because the reach has happened somewhere else that we might not even know about,
Yeah.
So the views in that way are valuable as well for a production company, at least, because if something's getting seen a lot, that's more reason for the company to do that more. And if it's being stolen and seen somewhere else, then that's, maybe a hard sell. But it's all part of it.
Yeah. Like I say, it was a little frustrating to see some of that recent YouTube content that had some of our early Alcan coverage on there, early Alcan video coverage. I said that to me is just kind of a blatant misuse and very frustrating when it's attached to as a PR hit piece for another tire company. It's like,
right.
Okay. And
that's
do
the
you,
most egregious version.
Yeah. Do you fire up the legal machine? Do you could chase your tail on it is the problem. It's not just one, it's, all kinds of different. So a little frustrating.
That's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah. And
I hate to do that. I almost never do that.
Yeah. And that's not me either. I'm not that guy. I'll never public shame anybody, but it's, I can see where it would be, extremely frustrating to a lot of people that go through that. Extremely frustrating. And it's frustrating for us too.
Totally.
So
totally.
On that fun note, you got a baby on the way, don't you?
I do. When a couple months, almost to the day.
April delivery?
April 16th is supposedly the day. We'll see
boy,
how close
girl?
that is. It's a boy.
Boy. Wow, game changer.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. Well, boys come with their own problems. I've got a girl. I have no,
Yep.
girl or boy didn't matter to me.
Yep.
Mine's been a blessing all through and through. So your first kid, a boy, you got that all settled in, got the room all ready. Everything's ready to rock.
Room's all ready, man. I can't take any credit for that though. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all my
What are you
wife.
gonna bring him home in? Which vehicle are you gonna bring him home in?
It's going to be a JL no matter what, because that's what we both drive.
Because you got
so
no wedging in the middle seat of the Comanche. That's not gonna happen.
Comanche will not be at the hospital. The Comanche only gets taken out when I don't need to be somewhere. But the JL will get me there. It's just the only difference is it'll either be on 33s or 37s. So we'll see. We'll see what the day brings.
Bring the 37s. Go for the picture. Get all in, right?
Yeah.
All in. You got to get one of those mirror things that like straps to the headrest of the JL so you can like see the babies. Because I'll tell you, that first drive home, you know, you got to strap them all in. They're like reversed, so they can't not facing you. You can't see them, and you're like having this moment as you're driving home. You're like, man, there's a little tiny human in the back seat. Like it's
who trusted me with this? This
yeah,
feels
like
irresponsible.
It's the craziest thing ever. It's the craziest thing ever. So what are you going to be in the? Oh, go ahead. You're going to be in the room. You're going to be in the room.
Oh yeah. I mean,
you're a baseball guy. You're going in with the catcher's mitt, the whole 9 yards.
I'm planning to be there. Hopefully, my job doesn't take me somewhere else. But that's we'll see what happens there. But
be
the
there.
hospital's only like 10 minutes from our house, so that should be pretty easy.
I think it's a really amazing experience. Really amazing experience, and you'll be a good dad. You got lots of video and lots of video equipment, still photography experience. Like that's what it's all about. You know, your focus
well documented.
Yeah, your focus changes a little bit in that arena. You know, it really does. Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be a ride, but we waited a while, so we're ready. We're good to go.
Nice. So what's next on the project list for you? What's next? What do you got moving? You got, I over the past couple of years, I've seen you've done some great work with Colt Industries. Of course, I see Warren, saw some ARB stuff you've done. Of course, us with Nitto Tire. Again, this podcast is not affiliated with Nitto Tire in any way, shape, or form. but you've done a lot of companies. Like, who's on the hit list, and then what do you have brewing next?
Yeah, so man, I don't know what I have brewing next because normally it's Jeep Safari, but that's so close to Nicole's due date that I'm not sure where I'm going to be at with that. But I know we're going to be doing a bunch of work with Optima this year, Optima batteries, and for their Orange Top battery, that new Power Sports battery. Well, everything battery. It's a lithium battery.
New lithium. Are they going broad range on that? Are they going all in? Like, I know they have the Power Sports and all that, but is that going to be a mass market battery for your Super Duty, JL, everything else? I never heard.
I don't know a lot of the intricate details, and I probably shouldn't even say regardless, but it's probably, I know they're doing RVs. They just released the RV size.
So one would assume. Yeah.
Yeah. And they have the Power Sports batteries now. So I would assume that that's the plan.
Nice.
Those batteries are wild. Not to be like a company man for a second, but like, have you picked up a lithium like car battery before?
Yeah. Actually, yes. Over at a friend's house, he actually ordered an off-brand. I'm not quite sure the brand for his drag car, like drag. Just like a home-built Chrysler drag car. And so he replaced the battery out of it with an off-brand lithium. And yeah, it's a quarter the weight. It's crazy.
It's so light, I couldn't believe it. Like the first time I picked one up, it
almost feels fake.
Yeah, they have so for the AGM batteries, they have display batteries. They have in like their for SEMA or whatever. It's just an empty plastic case. And the lithium battery that is a real battery feels like the display battery. Like I was blown away at how light it was. Like, I guess that's a selling point. I admittedly don't know a lot about lithium batteries for automotive use, but man, I assume it must be the weight, right? It's light.
It's the weight. Yeah, the weight is light. They're a little sensitive to voltage fluctuations, as I understand it. Maybe most of my knowledge in lithium comes from RC car batteries.
Yeah.
and how you charge those and utilize those. A little, sensitive to vibrations and stuff, but it sounds like they've got a pretty good packaging and platform in it. It sounds like I don't know the style, if they're plate style lithium or cell style or what they're using.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet.
And then charging normally takes a pseudo special charger, especially if you're doing, if they need to be balanced, like a balancing type of thing. Cause as I understand it, all lithium batteries at some point need like a balanced charge, where all the cells they're broken up into different brackets, I guess, and they all kind of like need to be balance charged to a top level and then cycled every once in a while doing that. So I don't know how they're going to do that. Are they going to have a special charger? Or are they going to have to?
So I'm not sure how compatible it is with previous ones, or if it is at all. But I know that they have a lithium charger that's coming to market. They just had it at I forget what show they had it at, but they had that on display. It looks like their digital 1200 charger now, which is like the big,
the big one
battery.
Yep.
Yeah, and so there's gonna be a lithium one of that. I'm sure they'll have all the small ones too, but that's their big thing right now, is that lithium push. So we'll be doing a lot with that.
Very cool.
I know Warren has us doing some bigger stuff with them later in the year. I mean, it's really all the same cast of characters. Like, we do work with ARB, and we've been working with Bill Stein a little bit, and also Fox. And yeah, it's a good mix for sure. It's mostly one company from every discipline, which is nice. So we get a lot of mix.
You name a lot of those companies. Have you been on any of the, I won't call it negative end, but any of the receiving end from all the big company mergers and, kind of big business getting into the investment game within companies? Have you been on the receiving or negative end of any of that? Sensed any changes or?
So Warren got acquired. Warren has been, I think they changed hands twice since I had them as a client. Now it's LKQ. Before it was Dover Tool, I think, was the parent.
Dover Industries.
Dover Industries. That didn't affect me at all. It changes their budgets around a little bit, which changes timing. But that's all been good. God, who was the other acquisition? Somebody else was acquired recently. Optima changed parent companies. They went from Johnson Controls to Clarios.
I didn't realize that.
That was probably a couple of years ago. The biggest tough thing with that was we shot a bunch of footage where, all the yellow tops, all the batteries have powered by Johnson Controls on them. And we shot a bunch of really specific content of batteries being carried and stuff. And all of it had to get wiped or rotoscoped in a new logo. Did you go to the
factory on that one? Didn't you go there?
So I didn't personally go to the factory for that. They have a factory in Mexico that someone else shot the factory. But we did all the activation in the field for all that stuff. So yeah, that was a big changeover, but that wasn't too big of a deal either. It doesn't seem like that kind of thing affects what I do too much. There's probably a project here or there that got changed or delayed, but what we do is not going away for them, so it works out for the best in a way. So,
what do you think the future of the automotive aftermarket is? Where do you see things? I mean, you got your eyes and ears on it, literally. Where do you think things are headed? This is for a lot of companies. I like to say we're in the post-COVID hangover scenario. Like, we all had a lot of money, we spent a lot of money, and now we're in that hangover phase. How long that lasts for which company, debatable. But what's your take on it?
It's tough because it looks like a lot of it's consolidating, right? You see that as well, I assume.
Yeah.
Where a big company will acquire a lot of other medium companies. And again, Warren is another great example. They had their parent company change from Dover to LKQ, but then Warren acquired Fab Fours, and they got Factor 55,
FabTech,
right? A lot of F's. But so there's a lot like that, and of course there was Fox and PDS and all that. That was a little longer ago, but I'm hoping that it doesn't become more of that, because then it starts to muddy not the premier brand, but it muddies the primary brand, at least in advertising on our side, because then a lot starts getting mixed in, and instead of it just being about boom, this brand is really cool, we're you get all these other little ancillary additions,
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think what happens too is you take a suspension brand, and it has its own marketing team, its own social team, its own its own niche, right? And its own identity. And then sometimes that gets folded into the bigger brands and identity. And now maybe you have a team that looks after everything. That's what I've seen over the past couple of years, is that some of those little, and I don't say little, but some of those brands tend to lose some of their identity because now they're folded into the big machine.
Sure.
And so the marketing becomes more about all the brands and not what was once very narrow and very focused. Like, we know our customer, we know our niche, and we're on it. So that's, I think, for me, one of the negatives of some of the acquisitions and things that are going on is that a lot of times they don't leave those brands alone and to do their own thing, because it's just cost prohibitive. You got to bring everything in and, tighten it up a little bit. So
Totally. But you know what that reminds me of is the first thing I think of when we talk about this is 4 Parts and Poison Spider, and then Polaris. Like, those 3 layers changed so much about all those brands. Like 4 Parts, or it should be Trans-American, changed Poison Spider a lot. And then Polaris came in and changed Trans-American a lot. So, like, there's all these, like, different layers of see, that's a good example of the acquisitions we were just talking about.
100%. And those are, you could go back, look at, when I first got into Jeeps, Rubicon Express had just hit with it was Terraflex and Rubicon Express. They'd both just hit with, TJ arms. And we all figured out you could put TJ arms on a Cherokee, right? And you could use a Toyota rear Adaleaf and build your Cherokee with. And so I can remember Rubicon Express just being like, man, it was the jams. Like, it was that was the expensive Premier rebuildable joints, had the right fitting track bar, and then they came out with their XJ kit and it was like, no way. They got springs and, like, man, they got a 4.5-inch kit. Like, that was it.
4.5-inch short on from Rubicon Express.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That for years was the staple, right? I mean, that was what you just had to have. And the spring was progressive, as I recall. And then you could you could put a spacer on top of it from Terraflex, and it just went on and on. But when they got acquired, it's like the wind just came out of the sails. And that was probably the first example for me was, of how, again, that probably goes back, man, 20 years. Wow. Yeah, it's probably 20 years ago that you watched a brand that was like owned a segment and really owned the Jeep market and really, was making strides. And then all of a sudden it just gets folded in. And as far as a machine, what better machine than, Transamerica, 4 Parts, Greg Adler, and the whole team. Like, you can't say they don't know what they're doing. They knew what they were doing. Right?
Totally.
So but it's interesting, brands like that, that have been folded in. And now we see that today with some of the investment groups. That's a little scary. Yeah, that's a little scary because some of those iconic brands are starting to get chipped away at, and they're starting to lose. For me, I think what they're starting to lose is principles. There's always great people within those brands that really champion them. The guy that shows up at 7:00 and he leaves at 7:00, like, he is there all day. And I think when that changes hand or that sells out, there's not that small company pat on the back for those guys that really adopted the brand as their own and pushed it as their own. So, and then the investment group struggles to kind of fill those roles. It's different. Big business looks at things completely different than small business. I mean, I know that firsthand. So it'll be interesting to see how big business, we know small business can tighten its belt, trim a little fat, tighten up, and get through it. Big business, sometimes, it's just not that easy. It's not that easy.
It's tough, man.
Yeah.
I think for me, the big difference is, like, so for a small business, like I'm small business, like, the identity is mine to lose, right? Like, everything about my business reflects on me. Like, people that say it's nothing personal, it's just business. When you own your business and you're a small business,
100%
it's all
personal
because you are the business. So
100%.
When you have a small business that, like, you built from the ground up, all the employees know each other. They're all part of the brand in, like, an inherent way. It's authentic, it's genuine. And then when you get a huge corporation that, they're not all bad. A corporation could have good intention. They know what they're doing. They're obviously good at business. They're a big business. But they aren't the business. Like they aren't,
Yeah.
when they acquire a smaller business, they don't inherently have a connection to that in the way that the people that built it and that are there do.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
I think that's like it's almost like you can't overcome that, because if I sold my business to someone right now, the person that bought it, it's just like, that is a revenue stream for them. Whereas to me, it's like, I bought my first camera when I was in college. I did hammers like there's this whole storyline that builds up to where I am right now that matters to me, that is irrelevant to someone else. And I think that those details that you have when you start your own business, even if you don't start it, if you're part of a small business and you're like invested in it, those details help you overcome the tough times for sure.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I could use my own experience on that. I'm happy to eat top ramen and trim the fat and do whatever we need to do. I mean, we opened up my wife's business opened up a second store during COVID. At that time, I was worried about having a job, be honest with you. It was crazy times, but we went through 4 months where we were just like, we're going to just tighten the belt. Like we are just going to top ramen it and, lots of cheese sandwich and tomato soup at home and whatever we need to do to come up with this additional dollars to make this happen. I don't know that big business does that, right? I think there's a different way of doing it to get to that level. And I don't know that you have the people that do that. And again, not knocking big business. I think it's just a different way of doing it. It's just a different way of achieving the same objective of tightening the belt. But yeah, it'll be an interesting year.
It's tough, man, because big business, you might have shareholders, you have a bunch of overhead, you got building, a whole bunch of employees. All these people got to get paid no matter what's happening, because a lot of those people, like you or I, for example, tighten the belt, that sort of thing. At a big business, everyone's like, I can get my paycheck on Friday, man. Like, I don't really care what's going on. Like, we're on the payroll. So they have to deal with that level of responsibility, which affects decision making and how quick you can make decisions. And you can't really pivot in any real meaningful way quickly. So that's just the way of big business, right?
I think if you're a business making laptops or shoes or, more commodity components, I think that the pivot from small business to big business is probably easier. I think what a lot of big businesses don't realize is the pivot in the automotive aftermarket is really tough. I probably don't know anybody that's really done it super successfly. And I believe a lot of that's just because of the principals and the people driving the bus, that had given up everything to get that to where they needed it to be or where they wanted it to be. So, I mean, you look at, the Holly Group and all those brands that they bought up. You look at the Daysar Group and all the brands that they own, the Warren Group or LKQ Group, the Fox Factory Group. Like these are a lot of big companies that have bought up a lot of small brands, and it has taken a chunk out of the industry in a sense. We are having this, not to run on a side tangent, but at Offered Expo this year, there was kind of this, well, there's not a lot of vendors here, and it feels like it's a little smaller. And it's like, well, think about the consolidation of brands. I mean, Warren doesn't have to pull in with Warren, a separate Fab Tech, a separate Fab Fours, a separate Factor 55. They can pull in with one semi and get everything they need done. And so shows, for example, have taken that hit. They lost, 7 brands or 7 booths and 7 identities, and they're kind of lumped into one now. That's tough for the industry. That's just tough for the industry. So
let's put focus in the right place when it's just this shotgun approach.
Yeah.
But again, it's like, I understand why they do it. Like that's the goal of business, right? Is to diversify and maximize profits and all that. So it's like this. It's like a never-ending cycle of necessity, but also, like it also is detrimental in a way.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you solve that. If I was Warren or whoever it is, I would probably acquire everyone I could as well. But I mean,
these are smart businesses, sharp guys running these businesses. Like they know what they're doing. and I think most all of them, will figure it out. I think it's just a challenge. I think as we watch and we grow, and especially at a downturn time, like I think we've had this post-COVID. Again, I think post-COVID's been a little tough for a lot of business, and some are willing to talk about it, some don't. And, I think as we come out of it, hopefully we come out the other side and we get back to this 2019 level of doing business, maybe a 5, 10, 15% increase, and we just keep moving. You think of all the things that we talk about amongst our peer groups in our industry today that we never even thought about in 2019. Like in some ways, it's made us a lot smarter. So it's made us smarter and a lot wiser, I think.
Yep.
And I don't think that's just the getting old, the age. I think we've just seen so much happen in such a short period of time.
Yeah,
So,
and lots of pivoting that everyone's had to do, large and small. So I know I certainly did, and everyone up from me. So yeah, I'd like to think it's for the best, probably, right?
I think so.
Seems that way.
Yeah, I think so. So we'll see where she heads. So no big projects. You're kind of sticking around. Make sure that you can put on the catcher's mitt. And
yeah, we have product launches and things like that. But I hate to be that guy, but like I can't. There's some products that are coming for some of the companies that we're involved in some of the larger launches. But I think that's going to be in the summertime. So nothing coming up in the next couple of months. So
awesome. Any new technology and anything that, I remember, man, what did you shoot with when you first started? What was your first camera that you,
my first camera,
was it Sony?
my first camera that I ever shot with for like off-road, like my job was it was either Panasonic or really unimportant. It was just like one of those that you hold like this and it's about that big. Just a standard Handycam.
Like a prosumer type of thing? Like
yeah, 100% a consumer camera. I mean, I was like 19 or 20. We would duct tape it. So we would go to Roush Creek and we would duct tape it to the roll cage on the buggies we were filming because there wasn't GoPros. Like the first GoPro ever was out at the time. So like we would duct tape cameras to cars and like it honestly wasn't that bad for the time. And so that was my first camera, but hang on. My real first camera, which I'll never get rid of, is this one, which I always keep in mind. So this was a Canon XHA1, and the funny way I got this, because I didn't have any money.
Is that the predecessor to the? It was like a silver one. It was like a silver-bodied Canon. Was it Canon?
So the professional, I mean, this is still a professional level camera, but at the time, like I can't remember the model name, but I think they were white. It was like a white version, and it had like a.
Yeah, I know the one. I know the one. Yep.
I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, that was
like a game changer in its day. Everybody wanted one. They were expensive. Like they shot. I mean, yeah. Just thinking about all the transitions in media from traditional, like small 3.5-inch Sony. I remember when Sony came out with their digital camera and had the little laser disc 3.5. The big CF flash cards, like the mini DV, like all the formats over the years is crazy. So.
Yeah, this is actually mini DV. Is this one? There's even a tape. I don't know what tape's in there, but it's probably an old one.
Game changer. Mini DV was a game changer.
So the way I got it is actually kind of funny. I used to film. The reason I started my company was because I used to film. I had an off-road club, and I used to film our videos of like our club trips with all my friends. And the Offspring, like the band The Offspring, had a video contest, and this must have been like, this was 08 or 09 or I can't exactly remember when it was, but they had a contest, and I entered it, and it was to edit to their new song. It was Hammerhead at the time, and so I edited a video to Hammerhead. I ended up winning the video contest, and I got $5,000. So I bought this with the $5,000.
Wow,
I brought this to Hammers my first year. I think it was it was 2010. I used this one, and that's what started all that. So, and camera techs come a long way. I know like a bunch of people listening to this probably have older stuff than this, but for me, this was my first real professional level camera.
Now, did you watch any of the earlier videos? And, you know, you were a little, not to date myself, but maybe a little young. Like you weren't really attending the ARCA events or the UROC or any of that type of stuff. You were kind of just on the tail end of that as the economy crashed there, right? It kind of all, you know.
Yeah, I missed all that because I graduated in '04 from high school. And then, so my first events I attended, and only events I attended, were RC Rocks, which was at Roush Creek. It was a local rock crawling competition.
Yeah.
And they had like a Wee Rock there every year, like Rich and Wee Rock would stop in. But RC Rocks is where I started everything. And then they started doing a little bit of racing there. And then King of the Hammers, their first qualifying race ever was at Roush Creek, just by chance.
Yeah.
And because I knew the owner of Roush, Bruce Chalice, I got involved in that through that. Like it wasn't through Dave, but it was, you know, I showed up and I made a little documentary under my own name and everything. It was the first documentary I ever did. I had never been to Hammers, so it was the first Ultra 4 racing I ever filmed. It wasn't even called Ultra 4 racing at that time. But yeah, I made a documentary there with I think it might have been this camera actually, and we did that one. And then the next year,
where is that footage now? I don't think it's on your heavy metal site or YouTube
it's a
channel.
DVD, unfortunately. So
wow, time to convert that thing and have a little throwback Thursday.
That's for the best that no one sees that.
Oh, I think that'd be awesome. You got to put that up.
The trailer's on the internet for it. I think it's on my YouTube, maybe. But we did that for a couple of years. I met Dave there, obviously, and so Dave. So after the, let's see, I went to Hammers my first time in 2010. That wasn't for Dave. That was for Pirate with Lance. And 2010, I made another RCQ movie. RCQ was the qualifier at Roush Creek. So then Dave, the following year, or later that year, asked me if I wanted to do the official event film. And I was like, yep, of course. It's like the whole point. Because in 08, or I'm sorry, 09, I think it was, 08 or 09. Probably 09. I skipped class in college to watch the live stream of Hammers that Lance and those guys did. And I was like, I got it. This is like, if I'm going to do this, like as a thing, this is the thing to go after. At the time, like it was the new cool thing. Like I loved it. It seemed awesome. So I set my sights on that. Thank God it happened at Roush Creek, because otherwise, you know, I don't know how I would have ever gotten involved. And the first time I ever saw a desert in my entire life was when I woke up in Johnson Valley in the morning and an RV had opened the door. So we got there at night. I'd never even been in a desert until the moment I was at Hammers. So it's like a baptism by fire thing, I guess. I stayed in David Smiley's trailer that first year and worked for Lance. So yeah, and I'm super, super happy I did, because Hammers has been awesome. I love the event. I love all the people I've met. It's been fantastic.
So was that first video the Ultra 4 Glory video you put on? Was that the first? I'm just perusing your, just perusing this site, and I just clicked on the oldest there. So
yeah, Ultra 4 Glory. I remember that actually. I made that video at the time. The thought was like, I'm going to plant my flag, because I haven't seen that in a long time. But I think it said something like, it's like the message of it is like Ultra 4 will never be the same. Which is like, I look back on that, like that was kind of a ridiculous claim. But the idea of that was like, I want people to know that I'm here and I'm going to be doing this, and you're going to see us soon at King of the Hammers. That was like the idea. All the footage is from Roush Creek. So that's an old one, though. Is that the oldest on my YouTube of everything?
It says 14 years. It says 14 years. So
that's probably yeah.
Yeah, it's and it's funny, even 14 years ago, just quickly pulling it up and looking at it, your style is the same, I would say, as it is today. Yeah, not much has changed in that. Yeah, very similar. You've got some good slow motion in there. You know, I mean, it's if you guys get a chance, go to Heavy Metal Concepts YouTube page and just click oldest video on his videos, and then it's about 3 in. Definitely worth a watch just to go back, and it looks like you know, that was, yeah, the glory consists of what you deserve, what deserves to be written. But yeah, lots of slow motion. You were a slow motion king.
I can look at that video and I can transport back and see what I was trying to do. But I was like so limited by equipment. I mean, really, everyone was limited by equipment because it looks like cheesy by today's standards, but like that's what you could get. Like getting cameras like I would go grab it, but the red camera we use now or any of the stuff we use now, that wasn't even an option, let alone attainable. So
Yeah.
like I can see everything I'm trying to do in those videos and like now I'm able to just do it. I don't think my style really changed much at all. It's just one of
No,
those things.
it's very similar. And this to be fair, this is only a 2-minute teaser clip. It looks like maybe some from Rausch Creek, with a little bit of early. Yeah, it looks like it's a little bit of a mix. It's definitely not. Maybe a quick early hammer shot. No, this looks like it might be, and it's got a
Which
big
is
start
this,
finish.
Glory video or a different video?
Ultra 4 Glory, 2-minute video. It's very kind of short. Let me see here. Some slow-mo. Here, let me see if I can, let me do this here real quick. I know you probably can't see it, but
I've seen it enough.
if I go back to screen and I do Ultra 4 Glory video.
Anyone that's watching this that does video work and photo work and stuff, they know that looking back on stuff you did like 15 years ago,
It's hard.
Torture. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like it's embarrassing for me. I can take myself out of it and acknowledge, but it's embarrassing to watch sometimes.
Yeah, it's hard. It's just a little quick opening. Looks like Clayton. Yeah, this definitely looks like out your way. I see Clayton as a
that's
sponsor.
That's RC209.
Oh, looks like it's gonna buffer on me here.
Like Lucas Murphy.
Yep.
Old Optimal Batteries logo.
Yeah, that is.
Vintage. Vintage
When
Dave.
when the green flag drops.
There goes Miller. Eric.
Is that Eric there?
That's Eric's
Wow.
old car, yeah. Original car, I should say. That's Charlie Melchner. Long time ago. There goes Doug Bigelow
Doug Bigelow. Wow.
on his Maxxis tire.
Yep. How cool is that? 14 years later, you know?
It is crazy. Because it doesn't feel that long ago for me. I think Jeff Knowles even in this video.
Pirate 4x4 banner. The glory consists of what deserves to be written. Like you had it back then.
Deep, so deep. This was a cool moment from the race. I missed that event quite a bit.
Good cuts, transitions.
God, I even remember editing it. Will never be the same.
Wow.
It's a big claim.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool. 14 years ago.
I would never make that claim now, but I can appreciate young me and his thought process.
Wow. No, that's, I mean, again, it's interesting for me, I think, to look back and go, geez, 14 years ago, you had the same, same style, which is one thing I've always appreciated about your videos and your style is that you bring, I know I've probably told you this before. One of my all-time favorite movies is Gladiator, right? And you bring the Gladiator to Ultra 4. You bring that sense of epicness, of battle, of everything that really just embodies that movie. You've been able to bring to Ultra 4, and it works. It really works.
I just see the race I just see the race a certain way. It's hard to describe that, but like it's like an intangible thing where like I just have this vision of what off-road racing is, and like for some reason I make it look that way. I don't know how to explain that or I could never teach it. Like it's just how I inherently see it. So
you didn't watch a lot of Gladiator film when you were a kid?
I love Gladiator, but I'm not like a Gladiator guy.
With some Hans Zimmer soundtracks. You know my style. I love the Hans Zimmer epic, score track type stuff that just
Totally.
Combine that with a little slow-mo, a little rock coming off a tire, and man, it just gives me goosebumps.
It also helped that I don't know that no one, but a lot of people weren't doing that at the time. Off-road video was a lot of like thrasher music. You know what I mean?
1000%. I don't remember who it was that headed up Suburban White Guys production. That probably goes back to 2003. If you know who it is, please tag him in the comments and tell me who it was. But I still have like an old toolbox hanging out here. It has a big Suburban White Guys production sticker from 20 some years ago. And my neighbors are over here and they're like, Suburban White Guy Productions. Like, what the hell is that? Like, honestly, it was like
like skater film or something.
Yeah, it was a video house, and they came to ARCA and UROC events, and they were producing like videos. And, you know, that time, pre-social media, right? And kind of pre-YouTube, that time between 2000 and 2009, 2010, where, you know, you had Klaus from Desert People, you know, producing Desert People 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, those were DVDs that were just like, you'd go to Offered Expo, and that's what you did. You went and bought a DVD. You ordered a DVD for Ultimate Adventure. Like, that was man, on video stuff. I remember doing Ultimate Adventure in 2008, I think it was, and YouTube had just launched, and the iPhone had just came out. This had to be 07, 08, maybe 09, somewhere in there. Long story short, Rick Payway, Rick, I love you. I remember he got super upset at me, and because I was filming on an iPhone, and I was uploading from the iPhone right through to the browser and uploading YouTube content as we were on the road. And he was so pissed off that I was uploading this content because it's going on the DVD. I'm showing content that's like, I was cheating the system, and he lost his marbles. We were at this park in, man, it was in Pennsylvania or somewhere. I can't remember where it was, and he pulled me aside, and he's, what was it? What was the name?
Paragon Adventure Park?
It was. I'm almost 99% sure that was it. And he pulled me aside, and he was like, is this, he had somebody's phone, and he's like, is this you that's pushing that? I was like, yeah, that's me. He's like, well, we can't have that. This is we're doing all this video and all this for the DVD. And I was like, yeah, nobody cares. They want to see it now.
Yeah, right.
I mean, and that was when I was with Light Force. And so my take with Light Force was to do a lot of content and a lot of videos and be at the forefront of things and build that brand, because when I started, they were nobody, right? So we had sponsored Ultimate Adventure, and I was there to almost not live stream it. That wasn't possible at the time, but the DVD, in my mind, like, nobody wanted to spend $25 on a DVD. So here was YouTube. I'm like, well, I'm just going to put it up right now, everything I can. And it was cool. Yeah, it was cool. Now, could you fast forward? Who would have ever thought 14 years later, right? Or that would be I've got a cabinet full of DVDs here of Disney videos and all this stuff that I don't even have a DVD player anymore.
Yeah, right.
So,
there's a bunch of stuff I made myself that I just can't even watch.
Yeah. I just ran across this little gem. That's a bag of media cards, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know what's on these media cards.
I've got a good media card here. Eh?
Yeah. There's some 256 megabytes.
I got you beat. I've already posted this one, so I'm
sorry. Here's an 8.
How about this heavy hitter?
64 megabytes. Man, you got me.
I got the big guy there too.
Yeah, you got me beat. I don't see any. I see. I think the smallest in this pile is 256. I remember when this one came out. The game changer that was the 4 gigabyte.
4 gigabyte.
Like
that's
wow,
that's a heavy hitter for the time.
That really was. Yeah, that really was. Yeah, all these crazy media cards. It's now I feel like, once you had to transition your VHS and all your photos to digital. Now I got to transition all my media cards to a drive.
Yeah.
Consolidate them to one Samsung hard drive. So
This card here could probably hold 1 second of not even less than a second of footage off one of the cameras back there now. It's unbelievable.
that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah,
Well,
it
well,
is.
think about an iPhone, terabyte iPhone, right? Which I know you're not an iPhone guy, but
I'm not.
why the holdout? Why the holdout on the iPhone? Why the?
Oh, how dare you! Everywhere I go.
What is it? Are you just? I know you don't like that. You're not drinking the Kool-Aid, but you know you're not getting in on the goodness that is the AirPods. They work most of the time.
Here's the whole thing. Here's the whole thing. I'm not actually against Apple at all. I grew up with Apple, love Apple, Mac, whatever they can call it now.
Do you use a Mac for editing?
Against it. I have nothing. Well, so that's, in my opinion, I think that Apple used to own that world, and now it just doesn't even matter. I haven't edited on a Mac in my professional career ever.
Oh, wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah, I have a PC that I built, so I don't use Mac for my work. But
wow. That's pretty rare. Honestly,
I don't know that it is so rare anymore. See, that's the whole thing. Apple used to own that world, and now they don't really own that world. It's become more of like the PC is not limited in the creative space anymore. That's for sure. So,
yeah, I think a lot of it in the early days was it was that file transfer, right? It was so much quicker to transfer a file to a Mac, and the way it all lined up that you just gravitated to using that. Not that the software, maybe less buggy with Premiere and some, but I think you're right. The lines have definitely blurred where, especially if you're building your own computer and your own stuff, you can achieve what you need to and build it for half the cost. If
my computer that I use for work right now was a Mac, it would be like a $10,000 computer. But
yeah,
I don't even know what this costs. Like $3,000. It's really not expensive. So
yeah.
And it works all the same for me. Like back in the day, it used to be really software based. That's also when I was like just starting to, so I wasn't too deep. I wasn't too much in the deep end at that time.
You weren't ingrained like the rest of us, because the rest of us really got caught up in, I think, the software was designed for Apple, right? And so if you wanted the best software at the time, you wound up having to run it on a Mac. And I think that's where we all got in hooked early on that, premise that's what it was. And then as the hardware progressed, it was the same thing. Like to plug in even a gigabyte card into and transfer that into anything PC based was painful. But if I did it on a Mac, it seemed to suck it in quickly. So, but again, today, I don't think that's the case. I think it's blended.
Not that I know of. And, I started just late enough where it wasn't really a thing for me. So, and I did grow up on Apple. I just I don't resist it. I just don't. Here's the whole problem with Apple is that Apple has trained everyone that buys apples to treat everyone else like they're behind the curve. So when you send someone a video, like if
that
you
comes with it. When we get our
phone,
iPhone, we got to show everybody. We got to, we spent $1,500. Like we got to,
it's
got to
like
say, look at me.
You got to be an Apple company man.
Yeah, it is good product. You can't fault the iPhone. It is.
No,
it does take. And I think we're at the same thing. Apple's tried to stay a little bit ahead of that curve with some of the ease of use and the thing about the Apple I joke a little bit. I could hand my mom two phones, an Android, and I could hand her an Apple. She would figure out the Apple in 10 seconds. She'd understand it. The Android, I would get the call like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know. And I do think they've gotten better. Like they've definitely merged and gotten better. But in the beginning, it was a little.
The problem isn't really that Android's hard to use. It is that they're all different. Like Android,
that's true.
When you do Android versus Apple, it's really like 70 companies and Apple.
Yeah,
it would be like comparing Samsung to Apple, right? That's the overarching issue.
Yeah,
but
and
I don't know. Apple makes a great product.
On some things, Apple, I'm with you. Contrary to people's huge love for Apple CarPlay, I can't stand Apple CarPlay. I never turn it on. I always say deny. No, I don't want it, because I don't want it to always come up that so-and-so's texting or so-and-so's calling or so-and-so. I just don't want that interaction in the car. And yet every car now, when you plug it in, like it wants to bring up Apple CarPlay. And for me, it's just, it's just not my style. It's just not, I would rather just have a satellite radio or just listen to Spotify. I don't need it to all run through Apple CarPlay. Like I can
I think it's great.
So
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm all in on that part of it.
I am surprised that you don't, I guess I am and I'm not. I'm not that you don't use Apple products, but yeah.
I'm a holdout. Everywhere I go, like all the guys that I work with that maybe watch this, it's gonna be funny for them because everywhere I go, I'm telling you, I just get ridden about the Android thing.
Well,
every time.
And the other ribbing, what's going on with you and Mogden? What's Matt Mogden? You got the Bronco on one side, the Jeep guy on the other side. Like every time I see this Matt Mogden, like it's a love fest.
I don't know if Matt's on Ford's payroll or what's going on there, but I'm not on Jeep's payroll. I mean, that's quite literally the joke about me. I'm not on Jeep's payroll at all. So I got nothing. I mean,
you guys got some good. You guys got good banter back and forth. Good friendly banter.
Yeah,
I love
help
it
from you. I hope Matt watches this and sees this.
Yeah, I'm happy to pour a little acetylene on that torch.
Yeah. Matt, if you're watching this, don't fall for it. Together we're stronger.
He's all in on the Bronco. The Bronco is the king. But I see your point, and I wish Matt would come and spend a little time East Coast wheeling, because it is so much different. Especially when you get into some of those fall and winter months where everything's a slick rock, everything's a tree, because it's much like that for us up here. Like our wheeling here is just, I would equate it a lot to your wheeling in Maine, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, through that neck of the woods, where you have a lot of slick rock, a lot of clay, a lot of tree root that you're hooking a tire on to get around, and a lot of waterfall stuff, that is really, and yeah, some of those, I hate to say it, I love the Bronco for its purpose that it is, but a lot of those require a solid axle, and you got to put a tire on rock and get yourself up and over it. It's a little different. So
a lot of our trails are also it's like really narrow spots for I'm used to wheeling an XJ, and XJs they're a small truck. And I get in my 4-door JL and I almost don't even quite literally don't fit between two trees on the trail. It's like a problem. There's really narrow trail systems here.
Yeah, agreed. I've been through some of those.
Yeah. So it is really similar to the Pacific Northwest in a lot of ways, but man, we have some wider stuff, but most of it's real thin, because it's a lot of the stuff we have that's off road, in the Berkshires, which is in Massachusetts, or Vermont, New Hampshire, all that. They're all old ancient roads, so they're not off road trail systems. They're just town roads that have stopped being maintained. And by town road, I mean a cart path from 1687, so it's a trail, but
that's the same with ours. A lot of our system is was started out as what I'll call a very primitive Jeep trail. Then you integrate 20 years of maple tree, and then you brought along the JK, which was long wheelbase and 4-door, right? So it used to be out a lot of CJ and then the TJ, and I think Cherokee, when it first hit, it was long. Like everybody, it's like, oh man, you're going to take out the glass. And in some cases you did, right? But it was the long wheelbase Jeep of its time. And then came the JK. And so, for us, it's a lot of pinball between trees, a lot of 2-point, 3-point turns just to get around a tree. So you're not taking out a rear piece of glass or, in a JK, a rear top. So
totally.
Yeah. But Matt, come to the East Coast, please. Come out, do a little wheeling. Will's inviting you.
Come hang out.
I love your guys back and forth, so it's always fun.
I don't claim to be as hardcore of a wheeler as I used to be. Not that I was ever a hardcore wheeler by any stretch, but my XJ is being worked on now. I've got some buddies helping me out with it. That's like my wheeling rig where I want to go to Roush and go rock crawling. My JL is, I don't really want to beat that thing up too bad. So that thing is way more capable than I'll ever let it be. I'll just put it
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
So
You got 2 jails in the family, right?
Nicole
Nicole's
has one as well. Yeah. Yeah, my
Nice.
wife. Yep.
Nice.
She's got a 22. It's just on 33s on recons, and I have an 18 on 37s. So with a Clayton kit.
And what
Shout
year's
out
your
to Clayton.
what year's your XJ?
97.
97.
My
Nice.
XJ was actually my first car. I still have it. That Cherokee is my first car.
You're literally your first vehicle
First
you ever
car I
bought.
ever had. It's still that one. And that's my
Wow.
wheeled vehicle. I try to keep it clean. I'm actually completely, it's me and some friends at a shop are completely rebuilding it to be like as close to new as I could make it because I want it to last a long time. So,
So you're never getting rid of that guy. You're keeping that guy.
It's my, I'll be buried in that thing 100%. So
And
that's the goal.
What suspension's underneath it?
It's got a Clayton kit.
Oh, nice.
Well, I said it's been around so long. It has a hodgepodge of things, so it's hard to say what kit's in it now. My JL has a Clayton kit in it, but the XJ is like, I think it has TNT arms with Clayton joints and
Yep.
Deaver leaves, BDS coils, Fox shocks, Fox air bumps. So it's everything.
That was the beauty of the XJ, right? You could hodgepodge a little bit of everything. You know, if you didn't have the money, you could sometimes just piecemeal it a little bit, whatever was cheapest, made the most sense, fit the right way. Like XJ really, it really did drag a lot of people into the Jeep world, I think, including myself.
For sure.
I wasn't a big Jeeper. I was a water-cooled Volkswagen guy. I was really into the GTIs and Scirocco's and Jettas, putting 2-liter 16 valves in a 77 Rabbit. They call them caddies now, but it was VW truck back in the day. Just building a lot of stuff. VW Porsche magazine was around. I had a car in VW Porsche Cabriolet I built, really into it. And then I got burned out. I was like, I'm done with it. I'm sold the truck, sold the Cabriolet, got out of it. And I bought a Cherokee, an 89. It was an 89 XJ limited leather. And I thought it was the coolest thing because at the time, I think it was $6,000 maybe. And it had leather and air conditioning and power windows and, power door locks, sunroof. Like it was just really well optioned. And I felt like it was like a Cadillac, I couldn't have time. Grand Cherokees were still new and unobtainium. But the Cherokee was obtainium. And then I went to, we have an annual thing in Washington State here, Moses Lake, where at that time, all the fellows would get together and it's like a big 3-day weekend over Memorial Day. And the tires sucked. So I drove 150 miles with my sister because my sister had a Sears card. And we went and put BF Goodrich 31-inch tall tires on those gold rims because the Limiteds had the gold wheels with the gold badging and all that. And we went and put 31s and we came back to Moses and we railed on that thing for 3 days. And got it hot, overheated it, the whole 9 yards. And I came back and I had the bug, right? I came back and I went crazy. I had a friend that started NAJDA at North America XJ Association, I think it was.
Yeah, I was in that 100%, of course.
Yeah. Bill Ventoyle, he was kind of one of the early founding members, and he worked for Central 4-Wheel Drive down here in Kent, Washington. And he became a little bit of my XJ mentor, because I had bought one and I had walked into 4 Parts and he was there and he's like, "Oh, I got an XJ out back." And like, "What, you do?" He's like, "Yeah, I got a set of Rancho TJ coils in it. And, I got this 9116 Rancho 9000 shock in the front. And then I just ordered the Terraflex lower arms." And from that point on, I was hooked. I like, sign me up. I'm in on that. As a matter of fact, I still,
that's an XJ story. Truly.
Yeah, it was, and much like your iPhone love that everybody hates that you don't love an iPhone. I loved that everybody hated a Cherokee on the trail. I loved everywhere I went, and people would snicker and like, oh, that XJ is never going to make it. Oh, you're never going to walk that. You're never going to do that. And it would go everywhere. Right. And that was
a funny thing. I experienced that as well. I remember people asking me on the trail in like, it was probably like '04 or '05 when I went to Paragon for the first time. People would ask like, how does that thing do? Like, like it was a weird thing to see out there. Now that's like a crazy, like obviously. But
yeah.
You just you created that memory for me where people were like shocked and they didn't know how good they were.
No, it was, there were, I would say, man, let me date this. I'm going to say that was probably late 97. TJ was out. Rancho had just released a kit for it. So that had to be 97 first year. So that had to be like 97 into 98. And I bet you it was 98 is when I kind of went in on that, because it was Bill that said, well, you take a Toyota Adeleaf and you rebuild the rear spring pack. And then stuff started to trickle out, right? You remember the revolver shackles. Oh, what a joke those were. There was all this stuff that started to trickle out for the XJ. You know, and then it was a sickness, right? I lived and breathed. I bet you collectively I spent 100 hours like doing wiring and stuff to that, probably more than that. I mean, it was just weeks on end. I loved it so much. I went to work for Central 4-Wheel Drive, which was at the time it was a 4-wheel parts. They had multiple locations in Sacramento. They had a location in Portland, Oregon, Spokane, Kent, and Everett. And so I went to work for the Everett location. I was a customer in there buying parts, and Ron Chick at the counter, he was the store manager at the time. He said, hey, you seem to know a lot about this stuff, because I would read the magazines and I would do my form trolling and then talking to Bill, and I would come in, and Bill worked at the Kent store. I would come in, I'd order parts, and he said, you want a job? It's like, doing what? He's like, selling off-road parts. I was like, sounds amazing to me. Like, I was just kind of out of school, didn't know what I wanted to do. And, and that just fostered the habit even worse, because I spent every nickel on bead locks, and then, winches and bumpers and, True Track, right?
Down the rabbit.
Oh man, huge rabbit hole on it, but I don't regret any of it. It taught me an awful lot, and I got to know a lot of great companies. It was a really, really good era in my life of the XJ. So I owe the XJ a debt of gratitude. I mean, it kept me in the automotive space.
If I didn't have an XJ, we wouldn't even be having this talk right now. Period. End of story. Like,
probably
that's what made me. I mean, at the time. So really fast story. My friend had a Ford Explorer, the Eddie Bauer edition. It was like a '93, like one of the fancy Explorers. We used to call it Heavy Metal Thunder, which was from Born to Be Wild. Yeah, from Born to Be Wild. He crashed that thing and wrecked it. I bought my XJ, and this was I actually bought it off my mother. This was an '03, and we named it Heavy Metal after that Ford Explorer. And now I have my company, which was at the time just off the cuff named after my Jeep. So like my Jeep has been such a catalyst for my whole career and life and all the people I know. And like, it's not even a unique story. Like, so many people have that story, right? Like,
I think there's definitely an XJ 6 degree of separation, right? I think a lot of people, the XJ was again, I couldn't afford a TJ. And at the time, YJs were too expensive. A CJ was in the cards, but I remember even CJs at the time being like 10, 12 grand for a nice built one with like a 60 rear, 44 front, just a Chevy 350. And I remember them being too expensive for what I could afford. So, and again, I think my XJ I made payments on for the first year. Like, I think I put like $3,500 down, and then or $4,000 down. And I think I made payment on it for a year, like at one of those 29% interest, crazy things.
Well, you bought your Cherokee when they still were making Cherokees. I've never even driven one while they were still being made. I don't have that on me. I wasn't even old enough to drive when they stopped making them.
It was, I mean, it was not great years. That 88, 89, Renix fuel injection, I can remember putting a high volume oil pump in it because oil pressure started to drop because I overheated it. I'm sure the cam bearings or something started to wear. So, I put, twin fans in it. Just wired dual batteries, did all the stuff that you did back. I was the first. So ARB, this is a little side tangent, but ARB had never built a Cherokee snorkel. Now, remember that they had Cherokee in Australia, but it was right-hand drive. And here we were just starting to get them as mail vehicles. So they developed a snorkel, and they weren't sure it was going to fit. And it was Jim Jackson at the time was heading up ARB in a literally a one-room, like narrow shack of a place down on it was down in Seattle it's right on the waterfront. Can't think of it, but anyways, very small. And Jim, who was just kind of getting ARB kind of going here in the States, right? And so I had inquired about bringing in a snorkel for Cherokee because I had seen or heard somewhere that they were doing them. And he's like, I don't think it'll fit. I'm like, I'll make it fit. Like, I got to have a snorkel. He brought one in. I had the first snorkel in the country on that thing, and I made that thing fit. Like it was pretty awesome. But that started the bug,
right?
That's a
90s story right there. I had to have a snorkel in my Cherokee. Things I've never said.
It was Overland before Overland. What?
Yeah, right.
Do you remember Confer roof racks? They were up in the valley in LA there. Confer made a roof rack, bolt together and a one-piece welded, but we're all too cheap. So cool. You couldn't afford the freight on the one-piece welded. So you bought the bolt together because it would UPS. Then they had the clamps, which are still sought after today. The clamps were amazing as a gutter clamp go. And yeah, it did the lights with Hellas on, a rack of Hellas.
Hella 500s.
Hella 500s.
Of course.
Two for $100 or whatever they were. Super reasonable. The snorkel, I couldn't afford when I first got started. Couldn't afford a bumper. That came later when I joined Larry with Trail Ready and we started that whole entity. It was just a really great time. Like I lived to put Jeep parts on and make it better and make it cooler. Cause it was, again, like you say, when you went wheeling with it, everybody talked trash about it. They're like, yeah, you're not going to make that. What are you doing out here with that?
They
CJ
still
guys
talk trash about it. Somewhere Scott Bloom is snickering right now.
I bet you Scott had an XJ in his day, did he not? And for those who don't know, Scott Bloom is with Scott is with Stellantis, which is formerly FCA, which formerly Mercedes, Daimler, but Scott's been with a long time. We'll have him on the show here at some point to share his insight and knowledge in the Jeep arena. But I bet you Scott has a little XJ in there in his corner somewhere.
I would like to give Scott a brief shout out. He has to be the greatest employee that an OEM has ever employed in the history of automobiles.
Hands down. Hands down. The guy is a wealth of knowledge. The guy will take the time out, and not for you or I, right? We all see Scott on the, if you don't know who he is, Scott Bloom actually works for Stellantis, was on some of the JL program when it launched. He's since moved to different departments within the company, but he always takes the time, because he's a Jeep enthusiast, he always takes the time to answer the question on social media. So if you're a Jeep owner and you're on the JL 2018 plus Facebook group or any of the Facebook groups, and you have an issue, a problem, a discussion, he is the wealth of knowledge expert that chimes in. He doesn't have to do it. He's just passionate about it. And it makes a world of difference because it has kept the brand out of the weeds, right? Because I'll tell you from big companies, big companies, really hard to have that dialogue. Well, we just don't have dialogue on Facebook. We try to stay out of it, right? It just becomes a brick throwing session. Scott has mastered the art of just being able to that wealth of knowledge and share that knowledge and help, well, I'm not sure what the part number is on this and I can't find this. And he knows he does it, and I have a couple of things in the past since I bought my JL in 19 that I've asked, not even asked for. He's just offered like, hey, you wouldn't happen to know what this is. Bam. He's got an answer for it. Right.
And it's always the right answer.
It is.
It's not like some conjecture that someone, because you go on the JL groups or whatever group it may be, and you get a bunch of answers, but like, is that really the answer? Though?
No, he's the hammer, right? He comes in, he just he drops the hammer. Done. The
And
end of
that's the
story.
answer. There's no more discussion to be had. And normally when I have, like, I try not to bother. Like, I don't want to be like,
Same.
I don't want Scott to, like, I don't want to use him as my only resource because that's super annoying for him. So I'll make a post on the jail group to ask a question, and he'll just message me and be like, listen, here's the answer. Like,
Yeah.
don't even waste your time with all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
He does that for a lot of people. I've talked to him about this.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I really want him to come on the show, to just pick his brain on how he maintains his composure, because I'll tell you that some of us, we get upset with social, we get upset with right, we get upset with the we get upset with the lack of common sense. I'll just leave it at that, right? And I believe Scott has a very good balanced persona of just maintaining some common sense, putting down the hammer, and being the expert. Like that's and the first, if he's wrong on something, I've seen him also back up on it and be like, I was wrong on that. Just so
Which
you know.
is unheard of, by the way. That's not how the internet works at all.
No,
right?
no.
He somehow navigated the internet in an effective way where it's like, oh, that guy's all right, even if you disagree, which is shocking.
Yes.
If I was in his shoes, Jeep would have fired me like 8 years ago, and that would have been it. Like, I would have been a liability to the whole company. Props.
I've joked with him before. Why are you not the head of brand experience?
Right.
Why are you not? Every company has a brand experience, a brand something. I understand you're an engineer. I know that's your background, but you are so good at maintaining the brand at this level. And it's not, I'm sure Stellantis has 40 CSR people on the phone. You could call Stellantis or Jeep, 1-800-dial a Jeep, and get somebody on the phone and they'll answer your question. But he really has been able to navigate the social need of today's answer, right? I need to know today. I can't wait. I got to know now. And he's been able to implement that without getting in trouble or smacked or by big business. That is almost unheard of today. I don't know any other company do you know any other company that's been able to navigate that?
If there is, I don't know the Scott Bloom of that company, but
I don't
seems to have figured it out.
Yeah, I don't either. And I feel very, very, very lucky to have gotten to know him. And I've spent quite a few hours on the phone with him. We've talked about all things Jeep. We talked branding. We've talked OEM tire fitments. It's been years that we've had chats, and I always appreciate his knowledge and wisdom and insight into the Jeep world. So yeah,
Sure.
I hope to have him on soon. Really hope to have him on soon.
Come on the podcast, Scott. If I can do it, you can
Yeah,
do it.
he's a really good guy. Really good guy. And I think we could all take a little bit of knowledge with how he maintains his composure with dealing with social. So
Yeah. He needs to get, I always tell him, he needs to get a raise. I don't care what he gets paid, pay him triple.
make him
Make
the brand experience manager. Make him the guy that's oversees a team of 40 that answers those questions and passes on that knowledge and has the answer, and his answers are not limited to Stellantis items. His answers, sometimes I find he'll point out he'll point out other manufacturers, right? Sure. He'll say, well, I use the Dana Spicer rear this, or a Detroit locker, or I've done this, or, he points out a little bit of that wisdom. And for an OEM guy to chuck that on the table, that,
Even that's unheard of. Big company comes company man, right?
It is. Yeah, it really is. He's done a really good job navigating that. So yeah.
Kudos to you, Scott.
Agreed. Agreed. We'll talk to you soon. So yeah. So XJ's got the 6th degree, and I'm guilty of it. I think I got a picture of mine on the wall here.
Right there. Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see in this light, this creative lighting, but yeah, it was. I think that's that was in its flame era. So you remember when flames were a thing? 98. Flames were on trucks, bro trucks. They weren't even bro trucks. They were just trucks with 37s, but flames were on everything. And so I had redone my XJ at the time. 2000. This was 2000. When the world was ending. I had redone my XJ. I was like, I'm going to build the cool XJ. So Bushwhacker, I worked with the guy at Bushwhacker. I think he's still around today, but we worked on the cutouts. They had prototyped a set of cutouts. They sent me the cutouts. So I was the prototype set of the cutouts. I cut out my XJ. That was a whole drama because there was no material on a unibody, right? It was a little sorted. And then we did Edelbrock had their IAS shock, I believe it was. It was, oh, man, I apologize. I can't remember your name. It's right on the tip of my tongue. He sent me the shocks, and they were a long travel IES shock, and Edelbrock had just come out with the shocks. We did trail ready bumpers, Pia lights. Pia was big in the game back then. Whatever happened to Pia? Where did they go? Are they still doing it?
Into obscurity. Pia and Ella. I mean, man, that used to be like the lights. Pia
ion lens technology, yellow lens.
Those were like those. It was like a purpley yellow looking lens, right?
They were amazing.
Yeah.
Pia 520s came with the stone grill, one-piece wiring harness, push-button switch. Man, easy sell. I was behind the counter at the time. Easy sell. Like you could spend $89.99 on the chrome KC highlights, but then you got to buy the wiring harness for another $20. Then you got to put it all together. Or you could just spend the $200 on this kit in a box, or $189 on sale, and they come with the stone grill. They got the ion lens technology, the one-piece wiring harness. It was an easy sell, and they were amazing lights.
Oh yeah,
you know, man, Pia, forgot about that. So yeah, the Pia's.
15-year-old me was pretty amped on Pia.
The snorkel, early. I mean, there was just some early stuff in there. Autometer gauges, I did. I was big into stereo. I was big into MB Quartz, sadly, Phoenix Gold amps, 212s. Yeah, every square inch of Cherokee had stereo in it. It had to sound the part too. Yeah, it did. Turn down exhaust, which was obnoxiously loud for a straight six. But yeah, those were good times.
4-liter exhaust, man. There's no exhaust that makes that engine sound good. If my 4-liter could sound like an electric car, sign me up, dude.
Yeah, those days were different, right? When you're young, you wanted to sound mean, and so I just did cut it off. I did a bullet muffler, a traditional red bullet thing. Welded it in, and then did a turn down, and that was my.
Yeah, I can hear that right now.
I woke the neighbors every time you started it. The time I was in like a studio apartment, and I had the bottom half of a house, and my neighbors up top were Indian, and they hated it every time. Do you think you could do something about the exhaust? It's so loud in the morning. Like,
kind of just how it is, man.
Like, no, I turn down the stereo when I come in. It's fine. Yeah, those are crazy days, but they got me in the automotive aftermarket, right? They got me into it. I was introduced to a lot of great companies, made a lot of great friends during that time frame, and man, XJ 6 degree separation. Let's find out who else was into XJs. I never had the 97. You're living the dream. I always wanted that newer 97, which had like one-piece wiring harness underneath the hood. It was just laid out much cleaner. Didn't have the million wires going everywhere. Had the nicer TJ dash in it, the nicer seats. Like everything just felt more refined and nicer. And I never did buy one of those. Always wanted to build one.
Why 97 specifically was great is because it had some crossover it had the good parts of the old years and the good parts of the new year. So like, they were kind of a mishmash of old parts. So like my 97 has door hinges from a 96 and before, which made it really easy to go doorless on your XJ because the new hinges were kind of convoluted in comparison.
Wow.
So I had hinges on mine.
It's something I know a lot about XJ, but I did not know the hinges were a change. I did not know that.
Back for you.
What else was it? I mean, were there other cooling changes or, I mean, transfer case, I understand, was the same. Rear end.
A lot of it was the same because the rear end changed. The rear end, you got a Chrysler
8.25.
spline.
Yeah.
The previous had a 27 spline. So
unless you had like if you were lucky enough to have the 44 in the limited, so
44 only came up to 89 though.
Yes, like only 89.
My XJ I had swapped in an 89 44.
Yeah. And then remember the 8.8 Ford because of disc brakes, and that was a huge swap in the day. Huge swap. Yeah, that was good times.
Good time to do. But I'm still living in. My XJ is hopefully going to be done in the next few months. Just bought new axles for it today. So
what'd you end up going with?
JK44s.
JK44s. And you're going to do chrome ollie shafts in them, do the Artec trussing, all the fun. You're just going to bolt them
Artec
in. What are you going to do?
plan, yeah, just to get the proper perches. But I want it to be simple. Like I'm over having like how it is before I started working on it. Like there's all this like one-off custom stuff, and like you break something in the woods and you gotta like make the part to replace it, or you gotta like special order a tie rod end because it's off like a 1979 Wagoneer, like two-wheel drive. Like I'm done with that. Like I just want it to be JK parts in the axle that like when I inevitably blow it up, I just go to AutoZone or on the internet, just get a JK part. Not like, because right now I have like a spreadsheet. I'm sure a lot of people do this, but like with all the obscure parts and part numbers and everything that makes up all the custom stuff that 23-year-old me did, I'm done with that.
I can understand that. I can understand that. Age brings a little of that. I think I just having the conversation the other day about the JL crowd and the JL market, so to speak. Like a lot of us bought JLs and went crazy. And now we're like, well, I wouldn't mind a 392 with just a 37 on it and call it good. Right.
Yep.
Because we went crazy on it. We did 60s and 40s and it's fun and we love it. But there is the simplicity of just hopping in something and running around and in something a little lesser. Right.
Yeah.
But still feeling like we got the V8 motor and all the things we wanted in the first place. So I see and hear a lot of that lately. A lot of that.
That's how I built mine. I mean, I wanted my JL to it's literally just a Clayton kit, 2.5 kit.
You've stuck with that formula. Yeah, you've stuck with that.
It's like, why? It has no other mods. Because I mean, it's a Rubicon, so like, it's got the TK, it's got the lockers. That was the whole point. Keep it simple. Just get in there and just go run a trail. Don't wrench on it at all. I've never had to turn a wrench, like fixing it, other than I had to change the alternator. Other than that, haven't even touched it. Mission accomplished.
Yeah,
right?
You haven't suffered from any. Did you suffer from the corrosion fun?
Yeah,
of course. Yeah, it's a common thing.
I didn't have to turn the wrench on that one though, so I don't count that one.
Yeah,
someone else turned that wrench.
Yeah, good. Still, I mean, Jeep as a platform is pretty amazing. I still, whether JK or JL, and the JL is for me just a huge refinement, but I really think that if in that space they still own it. I really appreciate the Bronco. I've driven a number of them. I've never owned one personally, but I think that the Bronco does what it does well, and I think Jeep does what it does well. And they both have their spot in the.
Like the thing that gets me is like people say like, oh, like there's Jeep guys and there's Bronco guys. Like that's the same customer. That's the same vehicle, really. Like all a Bronco is an IFS JL. Like they're the same truck. Like there's not this unique person that buys a Bronco or a JL. They're both so good at what they do. For me, I just don't like how the Bronco looks. It has nothing to do. I just it's not that I'm like a Bronco guy or a Jeep guy. It's just for me, it's just looks because that's the only difference at this point.
I like the looks. I like all the performance. I like I've wheeled. Been lucky enough to spend some time with Healy, wheeling his, and I don't see any shortcomings in the platform. I do think that what Bronco showed the world is that IFS can be put in a capable vehicle and it'll still sell. Now you or I are too close to this. We're too close to the solid axle, right? As we would say different, but I think as a mass market and as a mass business market, what Bronco did is it came to the market and it said, well, here's 100,000 units that we've sold and it's IFS, right? Yeah. So where Jeep really hung on to the solid axle because they felt, well, we got to hang on to it because that's what we are. We'll lose that identity. Bronco just came into it, bull in a china shop, said, here's your IFS, live with it, fix it, make it work, and proved, somewhere they came up with I think they're over 100,000 units this last year, 125,000 units. So, from the standpoint of the market, what does Jeep do next? Do they go IFS? Probably.
They better not.
I
think Pepsi Coke then, right? Like Pepsi doesn't come out and Coke goes away. Like I know that's like an overused cliche, but
no, but Pepsi comes out with Coke Zero, and then Pepsi comes out with Pepsi Zero. Like I think
but there's not only Pepsi Zero. There's still Pepsi.
If you can take out $3,000 in cost out of a JL for the sake of IFS versus solid axle. You could take that $3,000 out. Stellantis is putting in IFS. And even more so, if you can morph those parts that you're already using in Grand Cherokee, or morph those parts that are in, not Commander, the big one.
Grand Wagoneer.
Grand Wagoneer. If you can use some of those parts that are already in existence, because right now, from a platform scale, you got a solid axle that fits Gladiator and it's the same platform, right? That's it. So if you could scale it and you could put something from something else and you can put this IFS in there, that's where the cost savings is going to come in. And I think I think in this climate that we're headed with electric cars and, you know, the kind of the government's going to be paying you to drive an electric car. I think they're going to have to cut cost and figure out what that looks like. And I just feel like Bronco proved it to them. Like, we still sold 100,000 Broncos and we got IFS, but
I hope not. I truly, like, for me, like, the solid axle is not even just performance. It's very simple. It's very durable. It's really easy to modify. I mean, most people that are listening to this probably know all the intricacies between the two, but I don't know.
We're jumping all over on it.
I don't feel that it's like significantly more smooth than a JL, where it's like I would purchase it instead for the ride only. Like, I don't know. It's also, I've also grown up daily driving solid axle cars my whole life. So like, it doesn't bother me at all to drive the JL daily, but some people don't like that. So it's hard for me to say, but I hope they stick with solid axle.
I do too. Yeah, I do too. I think that's a core fundamental of Jeep and something that they should definitely not move from. But did you think you'd see at least a version of, I thought we would see at least a version of the Hellcat motor stick around. I get it's old school technology, I thought, but no development whatsoever in making that stick around. You know, it's at the end of the cycle, and I get it. But now you have Ford, saying they're going to double down and keep a V8. Obviously Chevy is reinvesting, has some new stuff coming down the turnpike in V8 technology.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. I guess kind of sad to see it go, and not, transition that V8 and that again, the V8 and the solid axle. I think they're dinosaurs that are going to go. And I don't think any of us wants to see it, but, I think it's just the reality of where we're headed.
They're coming back, man. I mean, this might be one of those things where, like, I'm recording myself and it's going to age poorly. V8s are coming back. It's all short-term thinking. Like, I'm not going to get political, but, like, I think that a lot of the push is really short-term political positioning. And when all that blows over in the inevitable turnover of politics in any direction, I think they're just going to come back. Like, the fact that, and I don't claim to know anything about manufacturing in any real way, but the fact that Stellantis invested a lot of money in developing an inline six motor, like, it cannot be cheap to develop motors, like, from the ground up. So I think it's good evidence that when a huge company invests in creating a new gas motor, that they probably think or know that EV is not going to be the only option moving forward. And I think the V8 thing is like something we'll look back at one day and be like, wow, wasn't that crazy when they said we just weren't going to have this thing anymore for what seemed like no reason? Maybe they won't be as pervasive, but I don't think we've seen the last V8 from Stellantis or whoever it may be.
I hope not. My theory in it is that you'll have V8s will carve themselves out into more niche garage vehicles, right? You'll get rid of a lot of the common V8 and you'll just have the C8 Corvette, right? Just something you're not, for the most part, going to drive that every day, right? But it sits in your garage and you paid more for it. You paid a premium to own it, type thing. I think for me, that's where it's gonna head in that arena. The electric car thing is going to be interesting. Again, I won't get into my political views on it. I do follow a YouTube channel called it's Murano Live. And he's an ex-Ford engineer. He works for a company that actually tears down electric cars and catalogs them from top to bottom, what it costs to build. And some of his latest videos on the electric car market have been interesting. Watching some of the, Ford pullback and GM pullback, and, just due to some of the uncertainty in sales and the dealerships not supporting. What concerns him the most is not that he thinks the dealerships are a dinosaur. At some point, the dinosaur is going to die, and all OEMs have got to figure out how to go direct. But also in that, he's worried about other, foreign companies coming in with electric cars and dumping them on the market cheap, subsidized, and messing up that chain, so to speak, of where and what you buy vehicles for. So yep. I think change in, whether you're Republican or Democrat, I think sure that can dictate things for a couple of years, and then we go a couple of years back, and then we're gonna yo-yo, right? I don't think we're gonna get to the bottom of one way is right or the other way. I think we're just gonna be a couple of years this way, the right way, and then a couple of years this way, the right way. But I think there's got to be a happy medium or happy balance for the consumer, because otherwise you're still going to have that car in the garage. You're just going to hang on to it. You're going to buy an old Hellcat, and that's going to be your muscle car in the garage, and you'll still, the price of used cars will stay high in that category. Right now they're coming down, yeah. But so
I agree. I think that it's like you said, it's not like you'll get a V8 in like your F-150 Limited or whatever.
Yeah.
It'll be in like a car that it would be purposeful in. Yeah. So yeah, I agree with that. I guess that's probably what my thought is, and I hadn't thought about it that way. So I don't think the more away.
No, I don't think they're not going to go away, but they'll just morph themselves into more kind of these iconic purchases or fun purchases. I think that's the. And then again, the V8, I think any car that had a V8 that's you can play with or modify or have fun with, may just look at the price of old Mustangs, right? Who would have thought a Fox body Mustang's going for 8, 10, 12, 15 grand? I mean,
yeah,
right. I mean, but it's V8. I mean, who would have thought a Fox body 4-cylinder would go for good money that you would just put a Coyote motor in? That's what's happening too. So, your kid, your little Will coming, he's going to be he's going to look, and that Hellcat's all right. I might like a Hellcat, Dad, in 16 years. I mean, they're not going away. Even if gas is $12 a gallon, it's not. And I don't think that's going to be the case. I think we all have a threshold, this kind of paradigm threshold of what we're willing to spend on fuel. And we may be in one party, we may be in another party, but that threshold can dictate where our vote goes. I mean, if we're all paying $15 a gallon right now, we know where that vote would go. So, but and again, not the automotive aftermarket and those that care about cars, we are a very small subsegment, very small, I believe. In the grand scheme of industry, in the grand scheme of things going on, I mean, I still think we're small. We have a voice, and we can squawk like the rest of them, but normally we don't either. We don't necessarily complain about much. The automotive aftermarket more just sucks it up and rolls forward, and deals with it. So definitely different. So
totally.
Well, man, that brings us almost to 2 hours, if you can believe this. And I had a couple things on my list I didn't even get to, so I guess that's good.
It worked out pretty well.
I guess that's good for a first time Will podcast. So I got to say, over the years, I have appreciated our relationship, our friendship, our conversations, your insight. I really have enjoyed our conversations over the years, our traveling together. For those of you who don't know, Will has been with me on a number of content trips we've done, both Jeep trips with our JK or Jeep experience, trips with to Alaska, trips to the Canada, to the Alcan stuff. I mean, over the years, Will and I have done a lot of amazing trips. Hope to put in a couple more trips with you. I know it's going to be tough with the little one, but we've got some fun stuff coming down the turnpike that I hope I can get you on board with. So I know you don't do the winter trip. I know that the winter trip is off the record. We don't want to talk about, but
I've already done the winter trip. We've done the winter trip a lot. I live in winter. I've had enough winter.
I know you don't dig the winter.
I'm going to put a tail in my yard right now.
But we'll get back. We'll get back to some fun trips for sure. I'd like to do a couple more trips with you and a couple more content trips if we can get you out. So again, always appreciate your view through the lens, and I think you always pull some amazing aspect and video out of it. So yeah, we'll do more.
You, sir. It's been a pleasure.
No, thanks for being on. Again, this is an episode of Corbetting with Chris. My guest, Will Gentile. Can't thank you enough. And I'll sign off, and we'll do it again next time. I believe we got a great guest list coming up. A number of guys on the list that I've been recording, and I'll release those out as I can get them edited. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, Will. Appreciate it.
Take it easy.
That's right, friends. It's time to cinch up the 5-point and jump right into another episode of Corbetting with Chris. That's right, friends. It's time to cinch up the 5-point and jump right into another episode of Corbetting with Chris.